first off, introduce yourself and tell us about your career before the Genesis Fit.
Yeah, so my name is Christopher Ryan. I'm the owner of the Genesis Fit here in Marshfield. And basically before that, I did a whole bunch of different stuff. I started off as a Marine. That was my first job or first career into the workforce. Spent a little bit of time doing that, did nuclear weapons security, and then I was infantry for 2.5 years, so 5 years total on an active duty contract. After that, kind of bounced around from job to job a little bit, trying to figure out what I was going to do. Ended up eventually landing into landscaping of all things. Did that for about 2 years, started my own business with that, had a good time, and then I injured myself. During that time, I started focusing on my rehabilitation, and that kind of led me right into training. So,
cool. So what made you want to get into the health and wellness space?
Well, part of it was my own injuries. And when I was in high school, I was fat. I was overweight. I struggled with a lot of depression and just, I struggled, I would say, a little bit with connecting with people. A lot of that was just lack of self-confidence, lack of belief in my own abilities. But I knew that I was joining the Marines. So senior year, I ended up joining cross country. I went from about 220 pounds myself down to 154 before I went in.
Wow.
And so I saw a big transformation in myself at that point in time. Just kept going. Fitness became part of my life when I came out. My brother-in-law was also a big inspiration there. He was always into the fitness himself. But we started training together. We started working towards like physique, bikini competition, that kind of stuff. And what ended up happening was when I got injured with the landscaping company, and I had to go through about 6 months of rehabilitation, he was like, hey, well, now's your chance to go get a certification. He's like, you got nothing else to do. You can't do anything. And so he's like, why don't you just hit the books? And so I did. I hit the books. We'd been training together for a few years. He was already a certified trainer, and
Cool.
He's like, I'll show you everything. Sure enough, I got into it, had a great time, and just kind of worked really well.
Awesome. Now talk about the leap to start your own business, because it's one thing having a profession, and then one thing it's taking that leap to starting the business.
Yeah, so I think the business was always one of the things I wanted to do, even from a young age. It was very early on. I remember that we had one of the career fairs back in elementary school somewhere. And the one thing that I wanted to do when they gave us like the list of all the different types of jobs and stuff you could run, I just kept saying business owner or manager. They didn't let me do it, so I ended up screwing off the whole thing. But ended up having a good time playing the games, never wanted to actually do the work side of it. But early on, I knew that I wanted to run businesses. And so when I had the first opportunity with the landscape company, I jumped into it. That actually set me back because when I injured myself, I lost about $75,000 just in not having a good proper setup to the business, not understanding a lot of it. I was overextended financially. I was a bad leader. I didn't have good leadership qualities or skills, and I didn't know how to hire people and manage people. And so that set me back for a couple of years, and it actually made me risk adverse. And so I was like, I don't want to take very much risk. But after COVID, I mean, I'd grown a lot since that point in time. This was when that business failed. It was 2016.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So it was a few years, and COVID hit in 2020, and I'd been calling myself a business owner at the time because I had just started launching my own fitness stuff again, but I was still not willing to take risk. And I think during that time I got into commercial real estate. I started focusing a lot on the real estate stuff. And I learned how to do a lot better research. And so I started digging in, looking at demographics, understanding trends, and I wanted to mitigate as much risk as I could so that way I could come back the second time and not make the mistakes I made the first time. And I think it all kind of culminated when my wife got pregnant. And so it was like, all right, I guess we're going into fitness. And so I decided to launch the business.
Cool. Now, for those that don't know, what is the Genesis Fit?
Yeah, the Genesis Fit is a personal training studio, but we also have 24/7 gym access. So we do personal training, small group training. We do have the 24/7 access. We also do nutritional counseling and guidance, assisted stretching, and think that's pretty much it.
So I'm always intrigued with this question. Where did the name come from?
So there's two parts to that. One of my buddy that I was trying to come up with the name of it, and him and I were just talking, and he knows me really well, and he knows that I helped him with a lot of his faith, and so he knew that I was a man of God, and he understood that I was also a Christian, and I was totally fine with talking with people about that. Yeah. And he's like, well, why not Genesis? And so it just, as soon as he said it, just kind of rang through, and it was like, I actually like that. And so, added a little bit of touches to it and came up with the Genesis Fit. So
interesting. So kind of talk about some of the services you offer. You offer a wide range of items.
We do. So when it comes to training, there's a lot of things that I personally enjoy. Personal training is got a lot of just different aspects and elements to it. But I've been everywhere from training physique and bikini competitors, post-rehabilitation PT. Right now we're doing actually quite a bit of postpartum training. Mm-hmm. So we've got a few clients that are working on that, and then also my wife is working on that as well. So it's something that I'm just interested in and doing a lot of learning and research in. And then just the growth of individuals. A lot of times personal training is more, it's more of a mental journey than it is a physical journey, because you get to discover who you are. So personal training has all of that. Group training itself is a little bit more strict, but when it comes to the adherence, the hours, everything like that. But it's also a really good way to get fit and build a community around that. Realizing that you're not the only one on the journey helps make the journey go by a lot better and a lot quicker, and it typically gets people to push themselves outside of their comfort zones a lot easier.
One of the things you mentioned also in your website is assisted stretching.
Yes.
Why is stretching so important, and why is that listed as its own thing? I found that really interesting.
So assisted stretching, I feel like the reason that I put it into it was actually, in a way, I fell into it. It was accidental. I had a client that I was working with, and I'd been working with him now at this point for about 4 years. He's just made it part of his lifestyle to just keep coming back. And the thing that made the biggest change for him was adding in the assisted stretching. I turn around, I help him build some more flexibility, range of motion. Both of those are extremely important when it comes to mobility. And so especially as we get older, one of the things that we realize is, it might be hard to just lift our hand above our head or reach behind us to the nightstand when we're laying in bed. And there's like these little things these quality of lives that we take for granted, and we don't realize that we're not doing it enough to make sure it happens. And so the assisted stretching just kind of comes in there, just get you a better stretch than what you normally would. And to be honest, most people don't stretch in the first place. So
yeah, I would guess so. So what's the most popular thing of all the services you provide? What's the most popular?
We're very quickly becoming known for personal training.
Okay.
It's been really well accepted within the community, and that's just been catching on like fire. And I think it's just because we put a high emphasis and a priority on the personal training.
Talk about the facility.
Well, so that was a process in and of itself. Thankfully, I had that background in the landscaping and into building stuff myself. So it took us a while to get under lease. It took us about 3 months to get under contract, get the lease set up, and then I actually built most of it and designed the entire thing myself. Wow. It was only 10 days out of 4 months where my general contractor was able to make it down. So most of it was hands-on. I did almost the entire thing. But I am thankful for the things that he was able to come down and help me with. I built it with a couple of things in mind. The first one is I wanted an open space. I wanted it to be something where it was easy to move back and forth with. The second thing is I built it so it could be modular. Everything can close off, and it'd be very easy to create additional space if necessary. But then it was also geared in a way for it to feel nicer, to feel more comfortable, to make someone feel like they're more important, because it's very easy, especially in the traditional gym model, to get lost and just feel like you're another number. At the beginning of the year, a lot of people sign up, and gyms know this, and they advertise like crazy to get people in. and then you're there for a month or two, and then you back out because nobody ever talked to you. You never had any relationship there. You didn't know what you were doing in the first place, and so I try and make it a lot more of a personal space to bring people in.
So talk about your clients. Is there a certain age or a specific type of client that you work with?
Well, I'll say my youngest client currently is 24, and my oldest client is 78. So we're somewhere in that range. It's a very broad range, and it's really whoever needs it, and whatever they need, as we're able to pretty much gear towards. The only thing that we haven't really touched into very much is training for youth, and so outside of the training for the youth, we pretty much can handle anyone. So,
cool. Is there a favorite client success story that you want to share? Like you took someone from A and got them to.
So I've got one that really stands out, and I share this one a lot, and she's great about it, and she absolutely loves it as well. I started training this woman a few years ago. She was a single mom, 2 kids, and I think part of her life, she'd lost confidence in herself. She dealt with back pain. She dealt with stress of work. Everything felt like it was kind of collapsing to her, and she came in, and I think it became more of a therapy thing than it was even just the training thing. But her back was always her big concern. Am I going to hurt my back doing this? Am I going to hurt my back doing this? And so one of the things that we did is we started doing plank, and now plank is mostly mental. It's one of these things where it's very quick to get better and get better at it. I think right now the world record, and don't quote me on this, the men's world record is somewhere close to about 12 hours, and the women's is somewhere right around 7 hours. And so it's a mental game. Yes, it's physically demanding. Yes, it's hard on the body at first, but you can actually get into a position where you can really build it quickly. And so that was the thing that I really focused on with her. We ended up starting off, and I think the first time she did plank, it might have been 34 seconds. And she was like, "This is ridiculous. I hate these things." And I was like, "Just trust the process. Let's do this, and let's do it daily." And so every day she came in, we did some planks. I got her to the point where after she did about a minute and a half, she felt really good because she went from 34 seconds to a minute and a half, and she was starting to get excited about it. And so she started taking it home and doing it. And I said, "Just do 3 a day. And we kept doing that. And within a month and a half, we had her over 7 minutes. Wow. But she wasn't quite there. She was at 5.5. And what I did is I took a whole bunch of other girls that were training around the same time as her, and I made them all go into plank one day. And they're just going. And as they slowly come off, and they're just, they're starting to cheer each other on. Like the ones that are still going, they're all cheering for those last couple. And she surprised everyone with that, because by the time 2 minutes went out, all of the other girls were down, and she just kept going. And now you've got 5-6 girls cheering you on. I'm telling her, "Don't come down. You gotta just stick this out." And she blew past her previous record of 5.5 all the way up to 7.5 minutes. And just the sense of satisfaction, all of the people cheering her on, all of the people just looking up to her. She became a role model for these people, and I think something changed with her. And I actually haven't seen her very much in the last couple of years, but she continued her fitness journey even through COVID, and she's now at a healthy weight. She's doing everything the right way, and she's done so amazing just because of the confidence that's shifted in her.
That's awesome. Is there a favorite type of person you like working with? You work with a wide range of people. Is there one that you enjoy maybe more than others, or?
Not necessarily. I think I just enjoy the one-on-ones the most anyway, because you get to meet so many different people that are going through so many different things. No matter how different one person is from another, the goals are very similar. And so we're all trying to achieve the same thing, and we all go about it in different ways. But it's also really cool to hear everyone's individual story, and so that's what resonates with me.
So talk about post-rehab training. I think sometimes people think once they go to physical therapy and that ends, it's over, it stops. So just talk about the post-rehab part.
Yeah, so I myself am always working on my own recovery. I've got some back issues myself, and even right now I'm currently over at Bay State working on my back. And so recovery doesn't stop, and especially if we have injuries, we're more likely to re-aggravate them, re-injure ourselves. But once you finish PT, typically, especially if you go off of your own insurance, your insurance only pays for 80% progression. Some insurances might pay a little bit more, get you a little bit further, but essentially you're never actually complete when your insurance stops paying for it. And so you're expected to continue doing the exercises at home. A lot of people don't continue with that. They just drop it off and they say, all right, good enough. Well, good enough doesn't last. And so when they re-injure themselves, they're right back to where they were. What I did is I did an internship over at Bay State in Scituate for a while, worked with some of the PTs there. And I realized that there was just a big opportunity, but also a big need there. There's such a big part of a handoff because PTs are great for the medical side. They're great for the recovery side, showing you what exercises to do, how to do them, how to engage those little muscles that we need to work on. But then that cuts off, and it's a really good handoff point because if you were to hand someone from PT into training, now we can start building the focus on the strength. We can continue working on the PT, focus on the strength, and add in nutrition. And so now all of a sudden you've just made a very easy transition from taking care of yourself to taking care of yourself. And so
totally.
It's just a good handoff, and it's a good team mentality to work around.
Interesting. So talk about the in-body composition analysis.
That's so it's a really fancy scale.
Okay.
Essentially what it does is it uses bioimpedance to measure your water weight, your lean body mass, and your body fat.
Okay.
It gives us a lot better of an idea of what's going on inside of you.
Okay.
And so a lot of people get attached to the weight, the number on the scale that they see all the time. The problem with that is, you can have someone like, I don't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who could be 300 pounds in his prime, and it was all muscle and there was no fat.
Muscle weighs more than fat.
Well, it's not that it weighs more. It's muscle and fat are just different density. So you have your muscle takes up less space. A pound of muscle takes up less space than a pound of fat, and so that's where we get that conception that it weighs more, but it's just it's a density issue. Now, the great thing about that is now we can see, okay, well, you might have only lost 2 pounds, but if you lost 3 pounds of body fat and you gained 1 pound of muscle, though you're at a 2 net pound loss, your BMR goes up. That's your basal metabolic rate. So you've got more energy. You can burn more calories just by doing the normal day-to-day operations because you have more muscle mass. And so even though that body composition might change and the scale doesn't necessarily change as much, it's actually better for you in the long run. On the other side of that, one of the things that we see a lot with society is when people try and lose weight, they're so concerned about the number on the scale that they could also be losing muscle mass. Now, if they're losing muscle mass, their BMR goes down, not up, which means that their overall budget for calories also goes down. And so if they continue eating the same way, or if they decide to go back to eating a way that they did, that's why we have that yo-yo effect where they end up putting on more weight than when they first started.
Right. So talk about how you create fitness programs for people.
Everyone's individual. I think that's one thing that I've tried to do with any of my programming. It's, I'll give you an example. One of my group training sessions, I have one client who needs 2 knee replacements. I have one who has a torn meniscus, and I have one who has a broken foot. And so these are group training. They can't do the same exercises all the time. There's a couple times where we can overlap, but each one of them has a different issue that they're working with. And so we have to be creative enough to work around that to continue towards the goals that they're trying to achieve. Programs are not necessarily one size fit all. I could put someone on a traditional, bodybuilding program and it's cookie cutter, but that's not going to be beneficial and it's not going to help the person in the day to day. And also with that is, you don't know what someone's dealing with when they come in. I mean, it's so easy that you could have tweaked your shoulder on your way, grabbing the keys to get down to the gym, and all of a sudden it's like you have to make a change on the fly because maybe you can't do a chest day that day. And so it's being in the moment, being present, and being able to manipulate or change everything so that way we can still work towards the goal.
Why should someone work with a trainer?
Working with a trainer, there's a few really good values. The first one is accountability. I have one client who for 44 years has said, I can do it myself. And it wasn't until he talked to someone who was older than him, who was going to personal training, and he said, why do you pay for this? He says, because I won't do it without paying for it. And he's like, I've made it part of my life. I understand that the cost is there because the value is there. One trip to a doctor is more expensive than a month to a personal trainer.
Right.
And we just don't see that because we have to pay our medical costs because we have to pay for medical insurance. But it's so much more expensive to work on your health on the back end as opposed to on the front end. If you were just to take care of yourself, it helps a lot. The second thing is you get guidance. So you get accountability, you get guidance. You get someone who has taken the time to do the research, hopefully, to know what you're going to be doing, how to get you to the results that you're looking for, but also how to help you avoid the pitfalls or the holes. And a great example of that would be, losing weight overall. If you lose weight and that comes off as fat and muscle mass, all of a sudden you're in a bad position. So you gain accountability, you gain the guidance, and then usually you gain some sense of community. Community is also a big part of being able to achieve those goals, those results. There's a lot of people that start fitness programs at the beginning of the year, and they all drop off. And it's because they didn't have anyone that they were doing it with. They didn't find someone that was there with them that could support them, because sometimes it starts with that you just need one person to believe in what you're doing and support you, and that's where a lot of the personal training value comes in.
So what separates you from others in the same space?
There's a lot of great trainers out there. There's trainers that devote their lives to learning, growing, and just being better at what they do. The thing that I think that I do a little bit differently than everyone else is I focus on the person. The person that's coming in, their goals are always going to be different. They might look for a similar result, but at the same point in time, their whole life is going to be completely different. And I just take the time and I try and listen to what their needs are. And I don't have a problem telling them if they don't need it.
So you're a Marine, and one of the things that in talking with people that have been in various branches of armed service is that there's all these skill sets that they learn that they apply to later on in their life. What's that was one or two things that you've applied from that experience into this experience?
Well, there's definitely quite a few, but I would say the biggest ones that I take away right now are discipline, having to be consistent, be able to get up and get the job done. The other one, which is probably one of the least talked about ethos from the military, is integrity, and it's working with integrity. It's living with integrity. I practice what I preach. If I'm talking to a client about something, it's because I've done it or I'm doing it. A lot of my clients, they find out that I'm doing PT myself, and they're like, wait, you're still going over to another professional to help you work on your struggles and your weaknesses. And I'm like, absolutely. Why would I do something or tell you to do something that I wouldn't be first willing to do? And I think those are the two big ones that I can think of right off the top of my head.
Business is all about partners. So who are the best partners for you?
I've made a big, I've tried to make a big commitment to working with a lot of people, and I really like to network. I really like to work with other local businesses, and I will try and bend over backwards to make something work out between me and other businesses. One of our great partners is actually our neighbor. over at Bungalow Catering and Kitchen. So Anne Marie and I, we're working on a few things right now. We're working on some healthy options for people.
Cool.
But we try and integrate ourselves with a lot of different groups. I work with a lot of the PTs in the area. I build networks with chiropractors, with other health professionals, so that way I can help essentially facilitate or make introductions for people to go to other professionals. And so we do try and integrate a lot of partnerships in there. Restaurants are always good. Nutrition stores are always good. And so just trying to help people live an overall healthy life.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given from a business perspective?
That's a good one. If I have to, I would have to say that the biggest piece of advice that I've gotten for the business side of things would be that you have to put in, you're working in your business and you're working on your business.
Right.
Those are the two big things. So when you work, you have to work in your business while you're there. Those are the day-to-day operations. Those are the things that essentially you're getting paid for, so to say. But then you have a second job, which is working on your business. That's doing the behind the scenes. That's doing the admin work. That's doing the payroll and all of the other things. When you start a business, you're the one-man operation or one-woman operation, and so it takes a lot to get there. I think that's been the biggest thing. And then don't be afraid to ask for help. When you go to your clients and you talk about some of the things that you as a business owner might be struggling with, you would be surprised that your clients love you and they love everything that you're doing and everything you stand for, and they get behind you and they will help support you and they'll talk about you, and it's just so awesome.
Yeah, they can tap into their network.
Exactly.
Which is awesome. If you could jump in the time machine to the start of your career, what would you tell yourself?
Be patient. Building a business is not about scaling. It's not about doing it fast. It's actually about doing it slow and doing it the right way. Take time. I would tell myself to take the time to do it right, and don't try and cut corners or skip ahead. And so those were some of the mistakes I made in the first business as well. Early on, I made some decisions like overextending and taking on too much, overreaching, because I was thinking I'll grow faster as opposed to just taking the time and letting it happen organically.
And last but certainly not least, if people want to find out more about the Genesis Fit, where can they go?
We're trying to be in every channel. So, we're on WATD. We're on the Just Steph Show. We are on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Google. We have our website. We're planning on breaking into YouTube and TikTok at some point. I know we have a few things going out on TikTok right now, but we're just trying to be all over the place. So just anywhere you look for the Genesis Fit, and I'm sure you'll find us.
Awesome. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for having me.